Let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent for The Australian, Geoff Chambers. Geoff, great to see you. Now, this is significant because today's news poll, as I said, shows that this is the first time there are a majority of people intending to vote no at 53%. How much harder does this make the Yes campaign's task? They don't only have to win over the undecided voters, but they actually have to change people's minds.
Hey, Sharri. Yeah, no, the road back for Yes 23 is getting harder and harder. And just reflecting on the John Farnham song, it had already been the unofficial anthem of the Yes 23 campaign. So it was no real surprise that they've used that, in a really sleek kind of election campaign advertisement. But there's an argument that they need to be telling, real stories from on the ground. And providing that extra detail, because there is so much confusion out there. And I think it is true that there's a rump of undecided voters, and then there's probably in the millions soft voters who are still on the fringes of no and yes. But as we get closer over this 6-week period, I think as we enter that final week of the campaign, it's going to be pretty clear. And if the trajectory continues as it is, it's looking like a very hard road for Yes 23.
And what about how this is impacting on Albanese's own popularity, on his own leadership? I mean, I've said that I think the two are intrinsically linked. Support for the Voice is diving, just as Albanese's own ratings are diving as well. What do you think about this?
I think you're 100% right. Anthony Albanese will take a very big personal blow if this goes down, and it is on track to go down. And there's no pulling out of it now for the Prime Minister. And there are people in Labor ranks who have been perpetually anxious and concerned that there's been so much focus on the Voice and the referendum campaign that they have taken their eyes off some of those economic pressures. And the Reserve Bank will meet again tomorrow to decide what's happening with the cash rate. So I think that as we get through this period of time, the Prime Minister flies out to Indonesia and India tomorrow, and also Philippines on that trip. It's going to be really difficult for him, I think, while he's overseas, to be able to talk about the really big issue of China, the issues around the economy and climate, and then also fielding questions on the Voice. So it's a real juggle for the Prime Minister, and I think that he personally will be very damaged if the referendum goes down. And if it goes down, even if he were to get the referendum up, even by the slimmest of margins, there would be this argument over does the Prime Minister and the government have a mandate to press forward with plans that we will only find out after the referendum date.
Now, another big story that the government came under fire about in Question Time today, this was broken by News.com's Samantha Maiden, that Defence Minister Richard Marles is trying to defend his $3 million spend on taxpayer-funded RAAF flights. Have a look at how the Coalition questioned him on this today.
My question is to the Minister for Defence. Can the Minister confirm whether he has taken his golf clubs with him on any Defence VIP special purpose aircraft flights, and if so, on how many flights?
Now, he didn't end up actually answering that question about whether or not he took his golf clubs on the flight. The bigger issue is how much money has been spent, Geoff, and also the government's lack of transparency, that for the first time, these records aren't being published.
Well, as a journalist over many years, members of the public and journalists could access the full disclosure log of VIP RAF flights. And that included full details around which pollies travelled, their spouses, staffers, whether there was ghost flights that travelled to pick them up, and exactly how much each of those legs cost. And I think that this is taxpayer money here, and full disclosure is required. And as I said, traditionally that's been available. But we've now seen some issues, not only with the RAF flights, but also with parliamentarian expenses and disclosure of those, that under this government, which promised transparency before the last election, we really are not seeing that transparency at play. And Richard Marles, because he is in charge of the disclosure of those VIP flights, that's where the pressure's bearing down on him, because it won't just be him that pops up in those logs, but he's the man as the Defence Minister who's made this decision to restrict access to these, the disclosure of these taxpayer funds.
Yeah, it's going to continue to be a big issue until all of these documents are finally put in the public domain like they should be. Now, the New South Wales government's a review by the New South Wales government, it's the Electricity Supply and Reliability Checkup, actually recommends that the coal-powered plant, Eraring, stay at least partially open past its closure deadline of 2025. This review's recommending that it stay open to ensure energy stability in New South Wales. Geoff, what has the Labor government, the Minns government in New South Wales said in response to this review?
Well, I think that response is pending, but it's pretty obvious from all the warnings that if we don't have coal-fired power, if we don't have the fleet in place in the national electricity market, we will see blackouts over summer and ongoing as well until there is enough gas, pumped hydro and renewables in the system. Gas and pumped hydro will give you that baseload dispatchable power. And if we have these high peak loads that you expect, particularly over those summer months, there's nothing that a politician is more scared of than blackouts, particularly in the major cities. So even the most, fervent pro-renewable states like Victoria are making these types of deals to extend the life of coal-fired power because if we switch them off too early, it's going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah. All right, Geoff Chambers, thank you very much for joining me.